So this won't be your typical, I've built a $3 billion SaaS company in under 20 minutes by using AI type of video. But if you've clicked the video, chances are high that you've tried to build, or maybe you're even building right now, an application that is more than a simple to-do list app, a task management app, or an application where you simply fetch data from an API, store it in a database, and display it in the front end. Because if you've tried this, you probably learned the hard way that at some point working with those AI coding tools like Cursor or Windsurf is pretty unreliable, right? They delete code snippets, they rename functions, they break the whole application, and they do all kinds of weirdly unexpected stuff. But truth is, this is the current state of AI development, and this is why I wanted to share my current prep process with you guys, so that you can drastically increase your success when it comes to building complex applications with AI. You can't really open YouTube these days without seeing all those crazy videos where people claim they've built the next Facebook with AI. And while this might be true to an extent, you still have to do a lot of prep work, and you have to understand what you're doing to really create those results. Over the past few days and weeks, I've been developing a prompt chain that I'm currently using before I even start coding with tools like Cursor or Windsurf, so that I can really define the scope of work for the application. And I've basically built out the whole app structure in theory that I can then use as context during the development process, so that tools like Cursor or Windsurf know exactly what I want from them. So without further ado, let's jump into the video and I'll walk you through the prompt. Okay guys, so what you see here is the prompt that we are using in this video, and as you can see, it's quite long, okay? In fact, it's just under 10,000 characters, and as you can see in the beginning, we have kind of the definition of the scope of work for the LLM, but also a role assignment, so to speak, where I say you're the technical project planning assistant. And then we look at 12 different areas that are important to think about when you're trying to develop a full stack application, or I should say a complex full stack application. So first of all, we ask some question about the general app idea and scope. Then we continue with the front end, the back end, state management, the database, the API communication in case you want to build your own API for your application, the DevOps, so hosting and monitoring, scaling and all this kind of stuff, testing, documentation and security and performance optimization, and last but not least, the user flow. Now, depending on where you are on your AI development journey, you probably don't need to answer the questions for performance optimization and documentation and DevOps, because you probably build some small apps that are not easy to build, but that you probably won't sell or that you won't have customers for, right? But this prompt chain really is designed to help you build a real application. And to be completely honest, I haven't done this myself, but I'm planning to do it. This is why I've developed the workflow, and that's why I'm sharing it with you now. And whenever I have new updates regarding the software that I'm building, I will share it with you here on YouTube. So before we actually use this prompt in DeepSeek v3, let me walk you through it so that you can understand each aspect of it. First of all, we define a role for the LLM, right? So it says you're a technical project planning assistant and AI designed to help users plan and document their app ideas. Your goal is to guide the user through a structured process to reverse engineer all the necessary documents for building their app. You will ask targeted questions appended at the end of this prompt to generate documents iteratively and adapt to the user's needs. You will at all times make decisions for specific technologies based on the user's answers. Everything needs to be tailored to the user's app idea. You create each document at the end of each session, e.g. answers for backend finished, create backend MD, and so on. You will find that there are a few examples for each section, making it appear that the user wants to build a fitness app, but that's not correct unless he says so. Because when I initially developed this prompt chain, I used a fitness app as an example. This is why throughout the prompt in some questions, you will find references references to a fitness app. But this prompt is the template for any app really. These documents will then perfectly outline every aspect of the application the user wants to build. Whenever the user's answers are unclear or you need more info, ask follow-up questions until you perfectly understand the application and what it does and what you need to add to the documents for each of the 13 sections from app overview to third-party libraries. Should the user not know the answer to one of the questions, please answer other simpler questions to reverse engineer what feature, functionality, or idea he's trying to explain or is having in his mind. Then repeat his answer in your own words and explain if this is how he wants it to work for his application. Because speaking from experience, when I started out with all of this, I had no idea how I should ask specific questions so that I would get from the LLM what I want, right? I mean, tools like Cursor and Windsurf, they've become incredibly powerful, but still sometimes if you don't ask specifically what you want or explain specifically what you want, they will delete whole files, delete code snippets, you name it, right? And this is why sometimes you find that some of the things that I explain here are redundant because I really want the LLM to understand what it needs to do. Whenever the user can't answer a technical aspect, e.g. which state management solution to use, you jump in as an experienced project planning assistant and senior dev and suggest a library or tool or solution he should use for his specific use case, aka app. And this is especially important in the beginning, right? If you're just starting out with this whole AI development thing, you don't really know what options you have when it comes to the different languages, different libraries. Do you have to create everything from scratch or can you rely on other people's solution? And this is really what I'm trying to answer with this question. In addition to the existing scope of work, you will generate a document titled Third-Party Libraries to list and describe the third-party libraries needed for the development process. This document will be created based on the user's answers and will be included in the final output folder structure. And now to the scope of work. So first, ask the user a series of questions to gather all necessary information about their app idea. Use the answers to generate the following documents: the product requirement document, the front-end documentation, the back-end documentation, and the third-party libraries documentation. Ensure all documents are written in Markdown format and stored in a structured folder. Explain the process and ask for the app idea. Ask targeted questions to understand the app scope, features, and requirements. Create documents based on user input, review the outputs with the user and make adjustments, compile all documents and plans into a structured format. And the instructions: always ask one question at a time to avoid overwhelming the user. After gathering enough information for each section, generate the corresponding document and ask for feedback. Include the third-party libraries document in the final handoff, ensuring it complements the other documents without redundancy. And use Markdown formatting for all documents, and be patient and adapt to the user's pace and level of expertise. And now you will see all of the different questions, but I won't read them to you because we now head over to DeepSeek and then we put this prompt to the test. Okay, so let's head over to DeepSeek and we'll paste the prompt and then we'll hit enter. By the way, make sure that you disable the DeepThink feature because you don't really want DeepSeek to think about any of this, right? You just want it to follow this process because I figured when you enable DeepThink, DeepSeek will change the prompt, it will add unnecessary fluff, so just make sure that you have disabled this. Then you want to hit enter. And as you can see, it says, great, let's get started on planning your app. I'll guide you through the step-by-step process, asking targeted questions to gather all necessary information. Once we have enough details for each section, I'll generate the corresponding document in Markdown format. Let's begin with the app idea. And for this app, I've thought about an idea for a long time. And one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing right now is coming up with good ideas for YouTube videos and shorts consistently. So this is why I've decided to build something like a vidIQ clone with this prompt. So one of the biggest challenges I'm facing right now as a creator is coming up with new, fresh, and up-to-date video ideas on a consistent basis. So I want to build an app that is connected to the YouTube API, where I can search for a keyword, display all related videos, and then use the videos to generate new ideas. I don't just want to blatantly copy existing videos, but rather use AI to help me analyze the video transcripts and headlines and then put my own spin to it. So this app will have access to the DeepSeek API to analyze the transcript, titles, and thumbnails and generate new ideas based on this info. The overall problem I'm aiming to solve is that I want to give creators back their time that usually goes in the idea finding process so that they can focus on the creation process instead. And again, make sure that you have disabled DeepThink, because otherwise you will get a weird answer. And now you can see that it asks a few more clarifying questions for the app idea and scope. So who are the primary users of your app? Are they YouTubers, TikTok creators, or content creators across multiple platforms? Are they beginners, intermediate, or advanced creators? Based on your description, here's what I understand so far. Let me know if I'm missing anything or if you'd like to adjust the priority. Users can search for a keyword and see related videos from YouTube. The app uses DeepSeek to analyze video transcripts, titles, and thumbnails. The app generates new, unique video ideas based on the analyzed data. Users can tweak or refine the generated ideas to put their own spin on them. Users can save or export their ideas for later use. I haven't specified this, but it sounds great. Are there any other features you'd like to include? For example, trending topics or hashtags, collaboration tools for teams of creators, integration with other platforms, e.g. TikTok or Instagram? Will this app be for web, mobile, or both? What is your desired timeline for the project? For example, do you want an MVP in 3 months, or do you want to have a different timeline? I will quickly go ahead, answer the rest of the questions, and then we proceed with the video. Primary users will be creators of all kind, but mainly YouTubers. If we could do the same for shorts inside of the app, this would be great. There are beginners, intermediate, and advanced creators. Yes, you summarized the key features pretty well. Maybe we can add something like a chat feature where the user can chat with the LLM directly to talk about the generated ideas on an extra site inside of the application. This is where they also can tweak or refine the generated ideas to put their own spin on them. The save and export features sounds awesome in CSV format, and trending topics sounds great, but I'm not quite sure how we would realize this inside of the app. Collaboration tools and integration with other platforms is not necessary for now. We'll hit enter. Now, as you can see, we haven't received the PRD yet because there are still some follow-up questions that we need to answer. And really, depending on the complexity of your app idea, you might have to answer many follow-up questions until the LLM really is able to understand what exactly it is that you want to build. But don't get it twisted. This is really the most important step in the development process. The more work you put in here, the less errors you will produce later on during the development. So let's have a look at the answer. Content creators, mainly YouTubers, are the primary users of all skill levels. Then we have the key features again, the video analysis, we use DeepSeek API. We have the idea generation, the chat feature. We have the save and export ideas feature. We have the trending topics. And the other follow-up questions that we need to answer is to implement trending topics. We can use the YouTube API to fetch trending videos or hashtags. Would you like this feature to display trending videos in specific categories, trending hashtags or keywords? For the chat feature, do you want it to be a simple text-based chat where users can ask the LLM questions, or do you want it to have a more structured interface, e.g. predefined prompts like make this idea shorter, suggest a better title? Should users create accounts to save their ideas, or will the app work with requiring login, e.g. save ideas locally in the browser? Do you have any preferences for the app's design, dark, light theme, minimalist, and detailed? And again, I will quickly answer those questions and then I will walk you through the result. Displaying the trending videos in specific categories sounds awesome. Let's do this. Trending hashtags is not a good solution. No one is using hashtags anymore these days. Let's go with the simple text-based chat where users can ask the LLM questions about the generated titles or video transcripts. I definitely want to add authentication, and I'm planning to work with clock authentication since it provides an easy solution for a complex task. The app's design should be dark mode only with highlights that are easy on the eye for buttons and links if there are any. The overall app's design should be minimalistic and not overly cluttered, but I guess we'll talk about this in more depth in the front end section. So let's hit send, and now we should get the first document, which is the PRD, as you can see here. And here we get another summary of all of the questions that we've answered so far. We've got the primary users, the key features, we've got the authentication, the platform, the design, and the timeline, which is, well, pretty competitive with 1 week, but I guess we can make it work. And now we've got the PRD, which basically lays out all of the things that we have talked about, but with a bit more depth and a few additional infos like the success metrics, assumptions and risk, and the timeline. And now let me know if the PRD looks good or if you'd like to make any changes. Once approved, we'll move on to the front end section. So what you can do now is you can copy it, head over to your coding IDE, create a new file inside of your empty project directory, or you could just go ahead with the rest of the prompt and then copy paste everything at the end of the process. Let's head back to the next section, which is the front end section. Okay, so before I walk you through the answers, I just want to show you how beautiful it is to work with this process, because as you can see here, we get the questions for the front end, right? So we have to specify the UI framework, and it gives us a few popular choices, for example, React, Next, Vue.js, Svelte, but it also gives us some tips based on the answers we provided so far. As you can see here, it says, since you're aiming for a fast development timeline, I recommend Next.js for its built-in features and scalability. Do you agree, or do you have another preference? And the same is true for all of the other parts, right? For the UI library, for the navigation, for the styling. You always get some kind of suggestion. And this really does two things. First of all, you learn about all of the different component libraries or coding tools that are out there to facilitate your workflow, and you can dive deeper into them by researching them on Google and trying to familiarize yourself with them so that you can then choose either one or the other, right? And here are the answers that I was able to come up with. So first of all, I want to use Next.js 15 with App Router and its server-side actions for the API calls. I want to use Tailwind CSS for styling, ShadCN and Magic UI as component libraries. Top navigation bar for navigation sounds fine. This is the answer to the third question, right? And for the styling, the background and text colors sound nice. It suggested a dark gray and white for the text color. As highlights, it suggested a soft red or teal, which I don't really like. So I told it to go with the light purplish color. The overall look of the app should be clean and not cluttered, as I've already explained earlier, but we should be able to achieve this with the specified component libraries. Maybe you can add a wireframe or something similar to the front end specs just for reference. And I guess we only need one input form for the keyword research and maybe one for the chat feature, right? But I would like to go with a fully rounded corners and search icon inside of the search bar. For the chat input, we don't need to add icons. And that's basically it. So let's hit send. Okay, and now we get another summary for the front end and the front end documentation in Markdown. And as you can see, we even get a basic layout for the wireframe, which is exceptional because you could use this and give to tools like bolt.new or v0 to help you build the front end. Okay, now as you can see, as the key components, we have the search bar, the trending videos section, the generated ideas section, and the chat feature that we can access through the navigation bar at the top. And as for the design principles, we have minimalistic design, consistent and user-friendly. And now it says, let me know if the front-end documentation looks good or if you'd like to make any changes. Once approved, we'll move on to the backend section, and this will be the last part of this video. So let's tell it, okay, let's move on to the backend section. Okay, again, we get a small summary at the beginning of the prompt where it says we use Next.js 15 with App Router and server-side actions. We use the YouTube API and DeepSeek for AI analysis, and we use Clerk for authentication. And now as for the backend, since you're using Next.js, we can leverage its built-in API routes for the backend. Do you want to stick with this approach, or would you prefer a separate backend server? Do you need a database to store user data, e.g. saved ideas, preferences? If yes, what type of database would you prefer? And it even goes ahead and suggests a few database types. And if you don't really know what the differences between each of those database types are, you can always ask a question and say, okay, before I answer all of the questions, I would like to know your opinion about the database type that we should use for this specific project. I thought about using Supabase since it has a generous free tier. Do you think this is a good idea, or should we use another provider or DB type? And then, as you can see, it goes ahead, analyzes your answer, and gives you a result where it says, great question, Supabase is an excellent choice for your project, and I'll explain why it's a good fit and how it compares to other options. And we even get a table with the pros and the cons, and the recommendation is Supabase is the best choice because it's free and is easy to set up. It uses PostgreSQL, which is perfect for structured data like user profiles and saved ideas. It integrates well with Next.js and Clerk authentication. Okay, and now we can go ahead and answer the rest of the questions for the backend section. Okay, so let's have a look at my answers. I definitely want to leverage Next.js built-in API routes as specified in the first part of the questions, and not create a backend from scratch. For the DB provider, I want to use Supabase, and I guess we'll talk about the specific data models in the database section, right? So I want to see how DeepSeek will answer to that. Since we don't need a full backend, I guess I don't have to answer questions regarding the API design. As for the third-party integrations, I would like to add Paddle, and thanks for pointing me to Paddle. The one who did this knows who I'm talking about, as payment integration, because the user should be able to do 5 free searches and then be prompted to buy a subscription for the app. Please make some suggestions for the error handling, since I have no idea how to handle this part. And for the caching, I want to use React Query, 10-stack query, because it's easy to use, will not only improve the performance, but also the API cost. Let's hit enter. Okay, so we get another summary for the backend and also some suggestions for the error handling, as you can see here. The API errors: if the API fails, e.g. rate limit exceeded, invalid API key, return a user-friendly error message like, oops, we couldn't fetch the data, please try again later. Log the error on the server for debugging. The same is true for Supabase, user input errors, invalid search query, and so on, authentication errors, payment errors, global errors. So as you can see, I would have never thought about any of these things, but with the help of DeepSeek, it's easy to add this to your application scope, right? So caching with React Query, it's a great choice for caching and performance optimization. Here's how we'll use it. Caching API responses, cache the YouTube API and DeepSeek API responses to reduce redundant API calls. And you can read through this. And here we have the backend documentation. Okay, so let me quickly change this. The other sections, as I've said, I will answer them off camera, because right now we're already, I don't know, I think like 30 minutes into the video, and I know this is probably one of the more boring videos that I've recorded in the past few weeks and months, but again, it's a vital part of the development process, and you should definitely put enough time and effort into this preparation process. Okay guys, so I went through the whole process of answering all of the questions from the prompt chain. And here's what I ended up with. As you can see, we have a few more files than initially expected. So according to the prompt chain, you would only receive the backend, the front end, the user flow file, and maybe the database schema and the PRD. But I've decided to split up the files even more so that we have proper separation of concerns. And here you can see this isn't really an exact science, right? You can just use the prompt and make it even better, adapt it to your workflow. So let me walk you through some of the files. We already looked at prd.md, so maybe let me show you the user flow. And for that, I want to preview the diagram. As you can see, this is also part of the user flow, where we get a mermaid diagram to really see how the app is working under the hood. And if we have a look at the rest of the file, you can see that everything is defined, right? From the onboarding flow to the core user journey to the chat feature and the payment flow. And this will really help the LLM to understand what you wanted to implement and to reduce the token size that you need in order to create a specific feature. I've also put the design specifications in a separate file. So here we define the layout with the header, the main content area, the footer, and the different components that we need. For example, the search bar, the video card, the chat interface, and so on. And as you can see, we even received the specifications for the color scheme and everything. Now, the only thing you really need to do is to start the development process. And if you want the prompt, join my free Discord server. There you can grab it and then you can basically use it for your projects. Okay guys, so I know this was a long video and was kind of boring because nothing much was going on, but I wanted to make this video to show you what you need to do in order to increase your chances of success when it comes to creating an application with AI. So hopefully you liked the video and gained a little bit of benefit from it, and other than that, I'll see you in the next video.